Because when it comes to villains with tragic backstories, at one end, I get it. I truly do. Your pain and suffering, you didn't deserve any of that. And I am so sorry that you even had to experience that. With that being said, why am I in it? Because why must I suffer for something that you went through?
People don't make albums anymore. They don't make albums. They just try to sell a bunch of little quick singles and they burn out and they put out a new one and they burn out and they put out a new one. People don't even listen to a body of work anymore.
Not every villain gotta have a traumatic ass backstory. Some people is bitches just for the sake of being a bitch. Like, that's just all it is. Like, I do admire the effort to give the character like so much depth and so much nuance, but sometimes characters are just bitches just to be bitches. That's all.
Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, I'm Garcella Robinson. This is my part of the world where I talk about books, anything in the book community, and of course whatever I want, because this is my channel. So guys, I got another topic for y'all. I'm not gonna lie, the reason why I got this topic is from being on Reddit, okay? From being on Reddit, and it just had me thinking of why villains always need a backstory, or why are we continuing to get backstories. So that's the topic that we will be discussing today and coming to a conclusion on. And the best way to, I wouldn't say solve the issue, but give some perspective on what we should be doing different to make it more acceptable for everybody, where we're not arguing about what's going on. So that's the topic that I will be getting into today, and that is villains need no humility. So let's go ahead and get to the nitty gritty. So before it even started, we always got to start with our definition. So let's go ahead and look up the definition of what would be classified as a villain. A villain is defined by their opposing role to the protagonist, often driven by clear but corrupt moral code and goal that is in direct conflict with the heroes. They are typically characterized by a desire for power, revenge, or wealth, and are often intelligent and ruthless in their pursuit of these objectives. To be a compelling villain, they should be complex and believable, with motivations that can be understood even if they are evil. Now, y'all already know we always have to get into our little historical bag, and that's why we will be going over how did villains go from being two-dimensional to sympathizing for villains and making them seem like they are just misunderstood. So for this, I'll always choose an article that I feel like definitely can relate to the point that I'm trying to get across, and also to, use our little big brain and get down to it. And the article that I chose is The Evolution of the Villain in American Cinema from the 1950s to the present. This was made by the Honors Program Senior Capstone Project by Kelsey McClure, Terry Hassler on April 2014. So first we begin in the abstract. The authors say, the villain character has evolved greatly throughout American cinema. Post-World War II, the evolution is most striking by comparing films from the 1950s, 1970s, and the 2000s. With a selection of 4 movies from each respective decade, the villain will be constructed to identify any similarities and differences across decades, to determine if the political environment has an impact on the way in which the villain character is portrayed. So we're going to scroll down. It goes over like the objective methodology and results and their conclusion, but that's not really what we're trying to get from it. We're going to see how the villains have changed from being two-dimensional to being more sympathetic and relating more to the audience than how they used to be before. So we scroll down to the introduction, and the authors say, throughout history there have been many different definitions of evil. From the Bible with Adam and Eve, the first allusion to the possibility of evil. The first introduction of the very concept of evil comes only with the reference to the tree of knowledge, identified as the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Norden 45. From the time that there was a man, there was also evil to serve as a trick and a downfall. However, it changes from quite often depending upon the context. Evil can be a person or a personification. It can be an action or thought, within or without. That being said, this can make the context of defining a character as evil and therefore a villain difficult. William Everson had pointed out that the activities of the bad guys tell us far more about the changing mores and morals of our times than a similar study of the good guys ever do. From the beginning, the basic virtues have remained unchanged, but social, moral, and legal behavior is forever changing. Typically, villainy is defined by a character doing something that society would deem unacceptable, whether it be moralistically or legally at a detriment to others. Evil, on the other hand, takes the idea of doing bad things to an entirely new, more serious level. Political philosopher C. Fred Alford argues that our modern concept of evil precipices an assignment of agency and intentionality. He defines evil as pleasure in hurting and a lack of remorse. On the modern conception, evil requires agents who are malevolent, acting with both intentions and knowledge. Therefore, when we use the term evil, it is more commonly as a descriptor of someone who is a sociopath or possesses sociopathic tendencies. They are not villains who were good and then had a reason to be bad. They are characters whose motive is either unknown or simply for their own enjoyment. Usually the villain is an insensitive and cruel person who, while sometimes has legitimate reasons, crosses the boundary for what would make them an acceptable member of society. At the same time, the explanation for criminality derives from our 4 different spheres. 1. Criminalistic subcultures or other situational factors. 2. Psychopathy or mental illness. 3. Aspirations for a better life. 4. Bad biology, aka born bad. There are plenty of instances, gangs for example, where crime is a part of everyday life and the situation is tough to leave. This scenario would address 1 and 4. And I'm telling you, we have so many stories about gang violence. I'm not even gonna lie, sometimes it gets aggravating to a point. Like, there's only so many times that you could tell the story, but this is pretty much giving that concept of, oh, we're only in this situation and that's why we do the things that we do. That's why they are seen as villains. Anyway, back to what we were saying. This scenario would address 1 and 4. However, if the person uses criminal activities to try and escape to a better life, while understandable, it is not an admirable way to better their life situation. This addresses number 3. And then there are people who are born without empathy for others, sociopaths, or those who enjoy certain things society has criminalized and because of some limited mental capacity are unable to resist the urge to commit evil acts. This is where it comes in with Jeffrey Dahmer, Ted Bundy, and so on. Like, we can continue to name these serial killers. Each one of these settings can further the development of an already fragile character and therefore push them over to the dark side. However, the last category accounts for people who, like those, falling in the second category, enjoying being the villain. For this last group though, these people know what they are doing is wrong, and while they could stop committing evil acts, choose not to on the basis of self-fulfillment and lack of societal obligation to their communities. There are many movies that use established stereotypes to make their point and easily define their villain. Usually this means a minority becomes the scapegoat personification of evil within society. Because of the portrayal of certain ethnic groups in such a negative way, films help shape beliefs so fundamental that we are scarcely aware that we have them. Unexamined stereotypes about who is likely to become dangerous. Additionally, according to Roger Ebert, Hollywood is running low on dependable villains, which leaves the same evil characters like a bad cop, drug dealer, and Nazi be endlessly repeated in a cycle of cliche plot lines. There is also a use of colors and contrast in the literal sense to determine perceptions of evil for the viewer. In the end, while evil blackness is powerful, those who conquer it, the goodness, whiteness, remain the most powerful of them all. While the movies in which my original criteria were fulfilled do not necessarily reflect just generalization, overall, a biased representation seems to be the norm. This shows that in general, the movies that have attained critical acclaim since the second half of the 21st century are not blatantly racist, but more portraying biases in a subtle way. Dark and light are still used through lighting and clothing, as well as music, in order to further facilitate the audience ability in deciphering who the villain is in comparison to the hero. While some films may vary obvious with their choice of villain characters for a specific reason, many do choose the more covert portrayal to eliminate friction with audience members that could be offended. And I feel like one of these ways that you can see an example that I really feel like is blatantly there is Star Wars. Like, when you see Darth Vader, you will see them in black, or if they're trying to portray peace but they're not actually peaceful, they usually have the black on, but they have white on, but they have the mask on. But either way, like, you mostly see a shining light when it comes to the people who are supposed to be fighting this evil. You'll see them wearing brighter clothes, more, aesthetically a lighter situation, to show that they're more closer to being the hero than the villain. Let's go ahead and scroll down. So now we're jumping into the 1950s, where they give us examples of how these movies were pretty much portrayed their villains. So the 1950s was a time filled with suspicion and distrust for Americans. Many different groups, primarily those of foreign descent, were the target to this new hostile doubt to their character, categorizing individuals by the groups in which they belong, and therefore the stereotype that correlated to that particular collective became the norm, both in daily life and in film during this decade. The same could be said for Russians. Given the Cold War and hostilities between the US and the Soviet Union, Hollywood's anti-communist films of the late 1940s and 1950s attacking the Reds, domestically and overseas, incorporated political, social, and cultural attitudes that had surfaced in American movies decades earlier. Though it was emphasized more, the same people still remain villains, but now for different reasons. The Russians had always been thought of as a bad guy. This even extended so far as to generalizing Eastern Europeans as villainous because of the supposed resemblance of their accent to that of people living in the Soviet Union. And I feel like pretty much what the author is saying, of the one who wrote the article, is pretty much like we still use Russians to this day, just not as prominent. Like, I feel like one instance that we can use is, I was just watching it recently, and that is Stranger Things. Like, we noticed in season 3 how they used the Russians building a mall, going into communications being compromised by a group of kids, but either way we still use Russians as the face of being evil in that show. Now let's continue. And they also give references of On the Waterfront, Rear Window, The Bridge on the River Kwai, Ben-Hur, and that was it. Now we scroll down to the 1970s. During the 1970s, there was an ever-increasing amount of turmoil within the United States, following race riots and protests about unfair treatment in the 1960s. Tensions was high. This overlapped with the two ongoing foreign entanglements, the Cold War and the Vietnam War. While people had grown accustomed to their evil Soviet counterparts across the ocean, the 10 years of fighting with nothing gained in Vietnam decreased the nationalism people once felt for America, as well as increased their unhappiness with the government. The Watergate scandal showed that even the president doesn't trust anyone, and therefore the public shouldn't either. Beyond the spying was the lying, and this also scarred the American sight. And this was by Kirshner. This led to an overall glaringly apparent apprehension by all Americans that they were being watched and possibly recorded. Struggle and suffering without a justifiable cause seemed to be an underlying theme in this decade. While these were not the most prominent issues of the decade, it still showed America was distrusting of those without and more cautious of the Middle East. In the 1970s, the trickle of ethnic-themed motion pictures became a flood, as audiences sought movies about their own immigrant roots as well as the immigrant heritage of others. The era's two most popular immigrant ethnic groups were Jewish American and Italian Americans. The emergence of these terroristic acts, as well as discussion of the cultural heritage of individuals, impacted characters in the movies. From the late 1970s well into the 1990s, Hollywood, the dominant shaper of popular culture in America, was preoccupied with demonic anti-heroes who stand beyond good and evil and inspire terror and awe in audiences, or just plain entertain them. And the movies that they have portrayed this, I'm not really going to go into detail, I'm just going to, state them. I feel like like I said, the video would be too long, and these are not the movies that I want to portray or the characters that I want to help portray my thing, like what I'm trying to say. It's really just to show the videos that were prominent in this time, more popular, that really stood out. And if you, like I said, if you want to look at these, you can always go to the article. And the first one that they mention is The Clockwork Orange, The Godfather, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Taxi Driver, and they come to a conclusion and they say, as the years pass, the villains get more complex. In the 1970s, there became more of an internal component to the evil characters, such as mental diseases and the stereotypes surrounding that. Alex is a sociopath, Travis suffers from PTSD, and Nurse Ratched is surrounded by mental patients. There's also a visible blurring of the lines to what is right and wrong. Travis, though a murderer, kills a pimp and two thugs, making him a hero. Don Vito does terrible things, however, he has such strong ties to his family that he becomes more relatable, and the audiences is sad to see him die. This inability to have a solidly defined evil could be influenced from the wars at the time, and that confusing people as to what is right and wrong. And when there are exceptions to the rule, everyone except Alex has a good side to them, which makes them more relatable to the audience. However, even Alex, when still under the spell of aversion therapy, is made to be a somewhat sympathetic character, because we as an audience could feel sorry for his suffering after he is cured. Even so, there are definite evil deeds that the villains commit, which makes them enter this list, but throughout this decade, the evil is focused more onto one person as opposed to one group as a whole. The villains individuates the group, and while they can be connected to others within their peer group, they are taken as more selective case regarding their wrongdoings. This is also the first instance that we see a defined female villain enter the picture. The range of villains also goes from teenagers to older men, as opposed to the typical white male about 30 to 35 years old. Only two of these villains, however, come from a group that as a whole would be defined as villainous: Don Vito, an Italian mob, and Alex and his British teen gang. Now we jump over to the 2000s. The 2000s was a time of great complexity across the globe. September 11, 2001 sparked an increase in terror attacks across the world. While the US struggled to regain its footing after such a surprise breach of national security, 2 years later, President Bush led us into Iraq in search of weapons of mass destruction, and to bring to justice those who had murdered thousands of American civilians. The US wanted retribution for the attacks on their home, and rightly so. This anger was pushed onto those in the Middle East as well as Arabic and Muslim people in the US. In the later half of the 2000s, an economic downturn became the worst recession since the Great Depression in the 1920s. This was largely in part of banks having false confidence in people in their ability to pay back housing loans, and feeling of euphoria and trust that emerged out of years of suspicion and paranoia from the terrorist attacks just a little more than 5 years earlier. However, once again, the American people were the victims, lurking beneath the labyrinth of conspiracies in something more basic: fear above the essential loss of trust. Deception throughout the decade is an underlying theme which leads to everyone questioning the motives of others. The complexity of the time has led to a new kind of villain, a supervillain. They get the plot spinning towards catastrophe. It's their lurid schemes the hero must rise to defeat. Now, not only are the villains themselves evil and the force that must be destroyed from the hero to prosper, but they also create evil circumstances that seem beyond control of the average person. By creating something larger than themselves, these new villains are stating that even if they are defeated, their cause will live on, and there will always be other evil people to keep the status quo. While this is somewhat depressing outlook, the struggle is what the viewers want. The audience wants to know why the villain is so malevolent and so capable. If the threat is not powerful enough, close enough to our deep shames, fears, and anxieties, we become indifferent to it. This is also what makes the filmmakers go deeper into the stories of the villain. Though many of the movies do have a solid, bad-to-the-bone character, they also have at least one other person who could be considered a villain, but that is because they are also a victim of circumstances. Depending on the level of free will they have, and the manipulation implemented by the driving evil force, that makes the semi-evil villain more relatable to the audience, who can relate and see how easy it would be to fall from grace. And the movies that they give us is The Departed, The Dark Knight, and Hurt Locker, and also Lord of the Rings: Return of the King. And the conclusion that they came to was by the 2000s, villainy has become increasingly complex. Anthony Hopkins, also known as Hannibal Lecter, put it best, saying that audiences are drawn towards the magnetism toward the darkness. People like being able to see something that they cannot do or someone they cannot be in a daily life. It gives them a chance to escape from mundane and ordinary. Now that the villains are becoming more relatable in their complexity, this form of vicarious living is that much more intriguing to the viewer. Contemporary screen stories, therefore, must continue to be refreshed by new plot frameworks that bear the same old tried and true conflict vehicles. The demand of the popular culture marketplace called for new forms of danger or humiliation that can engage the sympathies of audiences and bring them along for the emotional ride. While the storylines for the character may be more developed with deeper meaning, the end resultant is always the same: evil is defeated and the hero prevails. At this point, not only are there multiple evil characters in each movie, but sometimes there is not even a defined villain, just an overall group that is denoted as evil. Each villain has his own backstory and therefore is known as more than just the antagonist. Adding to this complexity, these characters can be mythical or evil by possession, which makes them less tangible, unlike the villains of the past. It gets to the point where an evil thing could be something like an all-seeing eye that used to be a human, like Sauron, or a person who becomes evil and changes in every way because they become possessed by something evil, like Smeagol. When there is a set villain, there are two ways in which they are evil. Either they have always been evil, or there was a pivotal moment in their life that caused them to go from being good to evil. In The Dark Knight, the Joker has always been evil, and we are not quite sure why, whereas Harvey Dent becomes evil after his fiancée is murdered. In Lord of the Rings as well, Smeagol becomes evil after having the ring and killing his friend for it. Unlike Sauron, who always been evil and wants to continue with the evil deeds. Both Sullivan and Costello are evil from the beginning, because not only has Costello been high up in the mob for a while, but he raised Sullivan to become an informant from the time that he was a kid.
The older I get, the more I relate to villains. I'll put these people through hell for being different and then demonize them for hating the world. For welcome me to begin with. So what the fuck? You want me to be happy-go-lucky? The Joker, happy, seeing his backstory and everything behind that. Sometimes the world can make you into a fucked up person. You don't even want to be a fucked up person, but damn, it's hard to be a good person when the world treats you like shit. Be careful how you treat people. You don't know what they going through. Come on, man.
And from that history lesson, we're starting to notice that we live in the era of giving all of our villains and redemption. Okay, we're giving all of our villains a story. We're making all of them more relatable to the average person, or even if we can't do it for the average person because we end up making them super strong and stuff like that, we still can see ourselves in these villains. And sometimes I just gotta say, I feel like not all villains need a backstory, especially if the authors who are writing these villains don't plan on giving them a redemption arc. Why are we trying to make them more relatable? And sometimes I feel like it's not even getting to the point of relatable, it's getting to the point where we are continuing making excuses for these villains instead of just letting it be what it is. Now, I end up going, like I said before, after our little history lesson, I did go on Reddit to pretty much get down to pretty much what people were asking. So first of them, I got, what has led to the rise in popularity of the sympathetic villain? This person said, this is a trope that has seen a significant rise in books and other forms of media. I have noticed that a lot of writers these days try to paint the villains and their actions as sympathetic compared to a lot of works from the past, and a lot of people like it to the point that a villain who doesn't have sympathetic motives are deemed as boring or uninteresting. It feels like writers don't write villains anymore, but instead write anti-heroes or antagonists, while the actual characters that might be better suited as villains are less developed nobodies that in some cases the hero is actually trying to protect. In most cases, these readers who end up liking the villain more than the protagonist, even characters like the Joker, who is unredeemable mass murderer, or Thanos, who's a psychotic nihilist, I believe that's what you're trying to say, are portrayed as sympathetic outside of their original printed works. Why are people less fond of truly depictable villains, even though they are further resemble the evil people in real life? It's just my opinion, but I miss that fantasy of seeing a protagonist take down a truly unsympathetic villain, as so many of them get away with things in real life. If people simply get tired of reading the good guys win, I'd like to know your opinions. Chapter 1. The Illusion of Humility.
Thing I can't stand is somebody who's like fake nice. Like when people around, they're so sweet, they so loving. You get what I'm saying? Like they put on this facade that they're really genuinely a good person, but behind closed doors, they do the messiest shit, or they talk to people crazy, or they just, they not who they say they are. I can't stand people like that. Like it's scary to know that it's people that only do nice stuff just to get something back from somebody, or they'll only say nice stuff just for you to give them a compliment back, or like I don't know. I just don't like people that's in shit only for what they could get out of it.
For my chapter, The Illusion of Humility, the villain that I chose is President Snow. I feel like he was perfect for this chapter, mainly because I feel like he definitely, especially the way that the author writes President Snow, she definitely makes him give off this illusion of humility. I feel like this is also plays in part with our government. Like the person that they give us in media is definitely different from the things that they do behind closed doors, and the things that they say that they don't accept, but they end up accepting when they're signing off them billets, okay, or signing off anything that has to do with her and the people. And I feel like that's definitely have to do with President Snow, because with him I feel like he always comes off as calm and collected when he's in front of people, especially when handling the things that he did. Now let's roll the clips back and see how this man be doing his people, okay?
Why games?
Shouldn't we be asking ourselves whether or not they're right in the first place?
You have a problem with my games?
Some of those kids were 2 years old when the war ended. The oldest of them were only 8. The Capitol is supposed to be everyone's government now. It is supposed to protect all of us. I don't see how making children fight each other to the death is protecting anyone.
I used to think that the Hunger Games were punishment for the district. Now I know the whole world is an arena, and we need the Hunger Games to remind us all who we truly are.
Why do we have a winner? Hope. Love. It is the only thing stronger than fear.
After watching all that, it kind of shows like how even though he pretty much oppresses his people, like this man is just this is a bad man, okay? But we still end up getting the sympathy book. Don't get me wrong, I love the book, okay? I love the book, but we did end up getting a sympathy book from the author for him. And even in the book, it shows how bad he is, but we still give that element of, oh, he's one of us. Like I feel sympathetic towards him. Like before, when we was reading the Hunger Games, it's like you don't really see the in between. Like if you like him, okay, ain't nobody telling you not to like a villain, okay? It's more, I'm just saying, why are we trying to sympathize ourselves with people like this? Because I feel like in real life, if we had a tyrant, taking over the government, we will have a problem with it. You know, we won't be as sympathetic, and we won't be writing this man a book trying to sympathize with him like we do President Snow. And with President Snow, with his illusion of humility, he don't show this same humility to the people in the district. He only show it to the people in Panem. And even they don't be feeling it, but they're so used to living in that life of luxury of what other presidents and himself has created for them, and to show them like, oh, you're separated from the districts, you're better than the districts. But like, if we take away all that and we add him to the districts like Katniss, and he was trying to do the things that he would now, will we end up getting a sympathy book from him? No. And the reason why I say that is because, do y'all see us getting a book from any of the peacekeepers? No. But we end up getting a depiction or a story of President Snow, so we can be able to relate more to him, so we can feel more sympathetic to him. And even in his book, he still show how bad of a character he is, or how bad of a villain, pretty much a villain, how he ended up becoming a villain, and how, yes, he did fall in love, yes, he did sympathize with them. But do we look past when he killed, it's a little bit of spoilers, but do we look past when he killed his one friend of the cookies that he got from his mom? Are we gonna look past of him trying to hunt down his supposed love interest? Like, are we gonna look past all that? Are we gonna look past of him keeping his people oppressed? That's all I got to say. That's all I got to say. This not a good man, but we still sympathize. We still sympathize, and we still get sympathy books or a sympathy movie from the author. My family is my humility. Now, the villains that I chose to represent, it's because of my family that I have humility. I feel like I chose the perfect ones, okay? And that is Cersei and Walter White, okay? Let's go ahead and get into it, okay? Let's go ahead and get into it. These are the perfect examples of the family. The family is my humility, is because a lot of the times they use their family as a crutch. Now, like I said in the beginning, let's go ahead and roll these clips.
All the things that I did, you need to understand.
I have to hear one more time that you did this for the family.
You did it for me. I liked it.
To all the days we were together.
I was good at it.
To all the time we were apart.
I was really
of each other's lives.
I was alive.
Is exactly correct. I have not witnessed a single moment where she expresses true maternal love for her children. They are extension of herself and tools for her to gain power. It's the same thing with Jaime Lannister. She does not love him. She only is with him is because she sees him as a male version of herself. Because I'm not a therapist or a psychiatrist, I cannot say or claim that deeply malignant narcissists cannot feel genuine love. I just don't see that in Cersei's actions and her words. Like when Myrcella is shipped off to Dorne, she's pissed off because that's not her plan. It's Tyrion's. It's that lack of control that pisses her off more than her daughter being shipped away, because she never thinks about Myrcella. Like when she learns that Myrcella was injured by Darkstar, she has a really bad scar across her face. Cersei's main concern is that she won't be pretty anymore. When Tommen becomes king, she completely undermines him. And the only reason she's annoyed that Marjorie is manipulating Tommen, not for Tommen's sake, it's for her sake. Like, it's, again, out of her control, and that she might be losing power. Like when Joffrey dies, she's very sad and mourns him deeply. But she's more sad that she lost one son that she can completely control and have power through. She thinks of herself so highly. She's the best mother. She's the best queen. She's the best politician, tactician. So any child that comes from her, by association, is also the greatest. And that's where her love comes from.
Pretty much in these clips, and even if you watch Game of Thrones or you watch Breaking Bad, you will notice that a lot of the times, like in the beginning and even throughout the story, we still get sympathy for these characters. We feel bad for him getting cancer. We feel bad for Cersei getting put in the circumstances that she did to end up becoming this person of evil. And a lot of the times, the sympathy that we are given, the reason of their humility, is their family. And I feel like they use their family as a crutch. They use their family as a crutch. I feel like Cersei would be that person that she was. And a lot of the times, the way that she gives off, I just got finished with the third book. I didn't finish the whole series, and I haven't watched the whole entire series. I did some research and looked into both characters, and that's the reason why I feel like they align. And especially in the earlier books. So Yes. Anyway, to continue, the reason why I chose Cersei and Walter White, I chose Walter White because throughout the book we end up showing pretty much the director and the writer end up portraying Walter White as he pretty much he's prideful, he cares for his family, he loves his family, does all this thing for his family because he know while he have cancer that pretty much his sum is because he has cancer and stuff, he don't want to leave his family alone, right? He don't want to leave his family alone with no money, struggling, trying to pay hospital bills, especially because his wife want him to get the medical treatment that he needs. And the reason why I feel like this is problematic is because the way that the author portrays Walter White, especially in the beginning, portrays him as he's doing all these things for his family. He's sacrificing all this, making meth and doing all the things that he's doing because of his family. But let's be real. I feel like if Walter White didn't have his family, he would still do the same thing that he was doing before. This is just the excuse he needed to justify the means of him doing it. And yes, he is a complex character. I'm not saying that he's not a complex character. But the thing about it is, all I got to say is, are we really going to be wanting to hear the background story of an actual person who's making meth and selling meth on the street to kids, the mob, anything like that? Will we sympathize them? And better yet, will we sympathize them if they were someone else? Probably won't. But because it's Walter White and because he's a fictional character, we do. And even at the end, he even I don't even know why he had to say this, because you could clearly see when you're watching the show that Walter White is doing this just out of pride, because it wasn't like he wasn't offered to make money the legal way with his friend's company that used to be his company that he ended up leaving because he hated feeling left out and didn't feel like he was up to par with the rest of his comrades. And he could have took that route, but he decided to take the dark route because he knew it was the easiest way. And I feel like this is a lot of contributions to how villains are, especially when it comes to making the easy and the hard decisions, because I feel like villains will always make the easy decision when it comes down to it. Now let's go more into Cersei. Cersei has a similar attribute to Walter White, I feel like, but hers is a little bit more traumatic because she hates not having power. That's exactly why she ended up doing the things that she did with her twin brother, why she treat her kids the way that she do. And she says it's all out of love, but really it's all out of control. Let's be for real. It's all out of control. But I feel like when you read the book, it's kind of like, especially with, like, I wouldn't say with women, because the way she treat women is wrong. And even the incest, the way that the incest, don't let me get into it. But either way, I feel like in the book, we don't really get that much of a sympathetic feeling towards Cersei as we would Walter White. We don't really get no full-on background story of why she is the way she is. Half the time, it's more of, oh, it's justified. I mean, like, not even that it's justified. She's pretty much just, like, evil, but she still says the same thing, that it's because of her family. But why do we still give that character, Walter White, more sympathy, especially because he's trying to protect his wife and kids, but we don't give that same sympathy to Cersei? Now, I'm not saying that some people don't. I just feel like I don't see it as much as I would Walter White, and how everybody's always saying how Walter White is, he's complex, he's this, he's that, but we don't give that same energy to Cersei. Like, I feel like for Cersei, listen, I'm not justifying anything she do. I do feel like she's a bad character. I'm just showing the double standard, especially when it comes to a female and a male being evil, but they're both using the same reasons. Like, for real, let's be for real, because she do the same thing. She says she do it because she love her son, she love her brother, but the thing about it, she do it because of pride. She do it because she want power, she want to feel empowerful. And that's the same with Walter White, but instead we make him more of a complex character. We have more sympathy for him, we want to relate to him. But for Cersei, we can't relate to her. We kind of feel like, oh, she gets what she gets, in a sense. She get what she gets. And this is just what I'm seeing. I'm not saying that there aren't people or fans out there who like Cersei. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't like Cersei or you shouldn't like Walter White. I'm just saying that the double standards, like, who is the sympathizing? Who are we starting to sympathize more? That's really what it's coming down to. Who are we starting to sympathize more? And do we feel like we need to be sympathizing these characters? Because I feel like what I feel for Cersei is right. Like, the way she used her kids as pawns, the way she used her husband as pawns, should be kind of, I wouldn't say in a sense looked down upon. We shouldn't be looking down upon these people, but it's more of, we should be holding them where they're at, holding them in that space of this evil character, character that the author has portrayed them as. And I feel like we should still be holding that same weight on Walter White, but we don't. But we do it to Cersei. And this is why I'm saying I feel like we need to bring back this thing where we don't make everybody need a sympathetic story, okay? And I feel like because a lot of the times it makes you look at who are the people that they're choosing to sympathize. Who are the ones that Hollywood is choosing to sympathize? Who are the ones that the author is choosing to sympathize with for us to feel sympathy for these characters? Or why is it in a need of a hole for us to feel sympathy for them in the first place? I got a reason for my humility. Chapter 3.
The craziest part about maturing and growing up is realizing that the villains in the stories that we saw in the Disney movies are actually very much so in the right. Like, Cruella de Vil hated Dalmatians. Her mother was literally killed by them. Like, totally relate. You know what I mean? The Wicked Witch, was she really wicked or was she misunderstood? I feel like the older that I've gotten, the more empathy I have for the villains in all of these stories because I can relate to them. And also, I'm like, damn right. Like, see it.
The next person that I end up choosing for I got a reason for my humility is Thanos. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I loved the Infinity Wars, okay? Except for the last one. I hated that one, okay? Complete trash. But anyway, the first Infinity Wars I really loved. I liked Thanos, and I wouldn't say I felt relatable towards him. I don't feel like I could do like a mass destruction of everybody. I don't feel like I could do something like that. But the thing about it is, when I was looking at his reasonings, I did feel somewhat sympathetic for him, especially with his whole entire planet getting murked the same way that he is murking other planets. Yes, I felt sympathy for him, and to an extent I could see why he wanted to solve this situation. But when it comes down to it, was it the right thing to do, especially if it happened to you? Was that your decision to make? Yeah, let's go ahead and roll these clips. All right, let's roll these clips.
Where do you think he brought you?
Let me guess. Your home?
It was. And it was beautiful. Titan was like most planets. Too many mouths, not enough to go around. And when we faced extinction, I offered a solution.
Genocide.
But random, dispassionate, fair to rich and poor alike. And they called me a madman. And what I predicted came to pass.
Congratulations, you're a prophet.
I'm a survivor.
Who wants to murder trillions.
With all 6 stones, I could simply snap my fingers. They would all cease to exist, and I call that mercy.
And then what?
I finally rest and watch the sunrise on a grateful universe. The hardest choices require the strongest wills.
The reason why I chose Thanos for I got a reason for my humility is because I feel like when it comes to Thanos choosing the path that he did, he had a lot of justification. He felt like it was because he's willing to make these sacrifices. He's willing to be the bad person to help everybody in the planet, to help everybody in the whole entire galaxy, that he's willing to make these hard decisions for you. And the writers, or the comic book writers, or the people who told the Marvel story, I'm going completely off the Marvel story, okay? I know people who be watching comics, it's a lot different. A lot of the times we're not given that same justification that the comic books give, that the movies don't. Sometimes they leave a lot out. But I'm going based off the movies, and I feel like in the movies they give a lot of justification for Thanos, and these justifications, the same with me, make you kind of think like, dang, he is trying to help these people out. Like, yeah, he murking a lot of people and he doing the same thing that he was doing to them, but he's trying to help us out. He's trying to stop mass population. He's like, he's trying to make it better for us. Why are we sympathizing with that? Why am I sympathizing with that? I can't be left out. I can't sit there and be a hypocrite and say I didn't like Thanos too. I like Thanos. But why do it makes us sympathize for him, or even try to do Halloween costumes and stuff, and, make him the way that he do? It's because a lot of the times, the same with the other 3 characters that I have mentioned, especially in the fictional world, the authors have us sympathize with them. They have us want to step in their shoes and be like, okay, I can see where he's coming from. But the thing about it, even if we look past all of what he did, right? Do that still justify the means of I'm doing this because it was done to me? I have the right to make the decisions to you. I feel like a lot, like, don't get me wrong, that sound like a tyrant, don't it? And that's exactly what he was. And that's okay. Like, that's okay. That's really what I'm trying to come down to is why are we always trying to sympathize these villains? Like, Thanos should not have been a character that we try to sympathize. Like, he made those decisions because he was wronged and now he want to wrong everybody else, but he's still going to make it in a way that I'm doing this for you. And tell you the truth, as much as I like Thanos, those are the worst people to end up having because they feel like every decision that they make is they're making this impossible decision to mess your life up, to mess everybody else's life up because this is what they're going through. And sometimes it's kind of hard to take somebody out of that ideology that I'm doing this for the greater good. I'm doing this to help you. And a lot of the times when it comes down to that ideology end up making it worse for everybody else, or end up pretty much making the hard decisions like, oh, I'm taking it out of your hands, like I'm gonna sit there and kill everybody without your say, but I'm doing this for you. And it's just a hard outlook to it's something that's hard to look at and try to sympathize with, but still the way that the writers constructed it, it still makes you sympathize with them. Like, it still make you sympathize with him. And I just feel like Thanos should have been somebody that we should not have been sympathizing for, especially when he's getting rid of families. He's getting rid of a majority of people. Like, who all watched the part when Spider-Man was on Iron Man crying? Like, that mess literally had me in tears, but I still felt sympathy for Thanos. Even after all this happening, I could still look back on, not even look back on it, I could still come on here and admit to what it is. And I felt sympathy for Thanos, especially when he has his whole family get killed in the same way to help. Well, not even get killed in the same way. They end up starving because of the overpopulation and them not wanting to make the hard decisions. So he felt like he needed to make those hard decisions for other planets. And that's just not right. That's just like me, somebody coming into my house and robbing me for everything that I got, right? And I'm like, oh my goodness, somebody just robbed me. So I'm about to go kill everybody who I think is a robber because I don't want them to end up robbing somebody else that was doing the robbing. Before I even know that these people are robbing, I'm sitting there just making assumptions on who I think will be robbing, and I'm just killing them. Make it make sense. I feel like no matter the circumstance, at least in my opinion, I know everybody's opinion is different, but in my opinion, I feel like I always tell my siblings this, is that when you're younger, you have every right to blame your circumstances, every right. But when you get older, there's only so long before those circumstances is taking over your life, and that is what makes you end up becoming that person that you don't want to come. That's the same way how we see our parents, and we're like, we be thinking like, oh, how do my parents end up becoming this person? How do my parents become either this spiteful or whatever? If you end up resonating with that, how do my parents become so spiteful, right? And as a child, I'm like, oh, I don't want to be like them. I don't want to end up becoming spiteful. But as time go on, I'm like, yeah, when I'm younger and stuff, I'm saying like, oh, it's the reason why I'm so angry is because my parents were so spiteful. The reason why I'm lashing out is because my parents is spiteful, which is understandable. And then when I get older, I'm lashing out on grown people who got their own lives, and I'm lashing out on them, and I'm like, oh, it's because my family is so spiteful. My parents were so spiteful to me that I'm lashing out on all of you. What they gonna say to me? Get therapy. That's what they're gonna say to me. That's what they're gonna say to me. I'm not saying everybody else, but that's what they're gonna say to me. When you end up getting older, that is your chance to try to fix the things that were done to you. And there's only so long that those excuses of other people could continue to reflect on your life, especially as you go on. And I feel like that's Thanos. Like, he ended up giving, oh, I got a reason on why I'm acting like this. I got a reason on why I'm lashing out. And I'm not saying that these reasons aren't justifiable, but how long will you continue to use these reasons? Will you continue to use these reasons when you don't have a job anymore? Yes. Will you continue to use these reasons after you end up being homeless on the street because nobody don't want to hire you because of your bad attitude, because you keep on using these reasons at your family? Yes. Will you continue to use those reasons after you have no family, no friends, nobody don't want to be around you because of how spiteful you are? Are you still going to continue to use those reasons? Yes. And you're going to continue to use those reasons to justify the means of you just being a bad person, or that villain Let's take it off of whoever's feeling a little hurt. I'm sorry. I'm not calling nobody out. I'm not calling nobody out. But I'm just saying there's only so long that you can use those excuses. That's what they are. There's only so long you can use those excuses. When you're younger, you have every right to feel the way that you feel because of how your parents brought you up, how your parents pretty much made your life, because they are in charge of your life. But when they're not in charge of your life no more and it is eating at you, that is when therapy comes in. That is when inner healing comes in, if you can take that step and if you can make that a possibility, because there's only so long that you could use those excuses before it start resonating with your life and people aren't feeling sympathetic for you no more. But in these villain stories, we're still feeling we're still feeling sympathetic toward villains who are our age or older. How old is Thanos? I'm pretty sure that man is like 100 years old. Let's be for real. Let me check. This man is literally 1,000 years old. It took him 1,000 years to get the gauntlet, to still have this excuse or reasoning on why he ended up getting rid of everybody because of his parents starved when he was. Let's look again. It doesn't give a specific date, but it says that it happened a long time ago, before the whole entire thing of him coming to feeling like it was a necessity to stop overpopulation because of his planet being overpopulated. This man 1,000 years old. And we're still feeling sympathetic for him because of what happened to his planet. And don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that I don't feel bad for what happened to him. I'm not saying that I don't feel bad for the people who end up having to deal with that and him wanting to stop that from happening. But what I'm trying to say, what I'm trying to kind of articulate, is that how long of pretty much it took him that long to come to the conclusion that because I suffered, I want everybody else to suffer with me. But I'm gonna word it in a way that makes you understand that I'm not want all you to suffer with me. I just don't want you to have to go through what I do of overpopulation. Like, it'd be different if this man was literally going to planets and he's literally going to the planets and he's seeing this overpopulation. No, he's not even doing that. He's not even seeing none of these planets. He just, everybody gone. I only fell in love, and that's why I have humility. Chapter 4. This series got an honorary mention, and that is The Four Horsemen by Laura Thalassa. I believe that's how you spell her name. I'm sorry if I butchered it. But I ended up reading her first book called Pestilence, okay? The reason why I chose this author is because, I'm not gonna lie, I love a good romance, okay? I love a good romance. But I want my romances to make sense. I want my villains to make sense. If they're a villain, okay, like, don't get me wrong, like, if they're that type of villain of they end up doing their killings and stuff to protect their woman, like, it's seen as a dark romance. I'm only doing these decisions to protect my woman, to do this and that and the third, but I'm not traumatizing her, okay? I'm not traumatizing her. But for The Fourth Horseman, the reason why I put this in my category of I only fell in love is because, one, this is a book channel, all right? So I have to add in my book characters, and I feel like this related a lot to I only fell in love, and that's exactly why I have humility. The reason why I hate these tropes so much, or why I dislike these tropes a lot, is because in my head I just be thinking, like, the only reason why they end up becoming a good person is because they fell in love. And I feel like it just kind of sucks for everybody else, because once they fall out of love, who's to say that they won't go back and do the same things that they were doing before? Yeah, and that's exactly why I chose this series. I ended up DNFing it after I read Pestilence. Just want to give a little heads up. I did end up DNFing it, and I didn't DNF the book. I finished the book. I just DNF'd the series because I had war. I ended up selling it, yada, yada, yada. But yes, I ended up selling this book, and that was mainly because the reason why I don't like villains who I only changed because I fell in love is because I feel like it just ruins the premise of them. It's understandable if they're a villain and the main character falls in love with them because of the villain. I feel like I put this in the same perspective of somebody falling in love even though they don't agree with what you stand for or who you are as a person, but they just like you. They don't like everything else that come, like other people like you, or they don't like other situations like what you stand for like you. They don't accept all that, but they just accept you. And this is automatically, I feel like, a bad standing point to be on, especially with a series like this, is because all it takes is one little incident where they break up with you, and who's to say that these people won't go back to doing what they were doing before. And especially with these being like supernatural beings, kind of like, they're kind of like resetting the world. Why would they want to fall in love with the humans? I'm sorry. Like, I'm getting a little bit off topic, but why would they? It just don't make no sense to me. And especially with the I only fell in love trope, especially with Pestilence, is because like he did everything that he did. He literally was giving everybody sicknesses and stuff, pretty much killing thousands and trillions of people. But because he fell in love, he stopped. And then his brother come in and pretty much do the same thing. They're killing all these people, and they just stopped killing because of that person. It wasn't no reflection. It wasn't no nothing. It wasn't no nothing. They didn't even have like I want to fix myself, and then I want to be with you. He didn't even see nothing wrong with the things that he was doing. Like, he felt like, and it's just another day. And that's because he really can't relate to seeing humans as anything else. But you're telling me that he is supposed to see this woman as something else? Like, yeah, make it make sense. That's the only thing that I end up bringing up. That's the only reason why I don't like I Fell in Love humility, because I don't think it's real. Tell you the truth, I feel like you don't even have humility for real. You're just faking the funk because you fell in love with that person. And it kind of just causes a whole dynamic of just unbelievability, is because of you really didn't change. You didn't make no growth, no nothing. You don't have no redemption arc. And that is going into my case of not giving characters a backstory or not making them sad. And it's okay with him being the villain. I just don't like it when they end up they stop being a villain for that time being because they fell in love. Chapter 5. I do this for the love of the game. Now, the characters that I chose to portray I do this for the love of the game is Carnage and Reverse Flash. Now, these are villains that I'm literally trying to pretty much what I say is I feel like every other villain relates to these characters. And the reason why I feel like a lot of these characters, they just are what they are. They're not boring characters. They have depth. They have stories. But they're not giving no redemption. They're not giving no, oh, I did this for a reason. They're not giving no illusion of this sense of this sense of humility. I'm not having you be sympathetic for me. I am who I am, and that is a villain.
It's easily got to be one of my favorite character tropes. Just unadulterated evil, no rhyme or reason. Gonna cause the most pain possible for the main character, wants to watch the world burn, and looks badass while they do it. The types of characters who are just like that at birth. There's no backstories, there's no hidden trauma, they're just menaces to society because they enjoy it. Like, you got people like Dio out here who just hates the Joestar family because he can. I will kiss your girl, I will kill your father, I will throw your dog in a furnace because I like seeing you in pain. And you've got to really love the sport. You've got to make this shit entertaining because I don't want to relate to you. I want to hate you, and I want you to make it hard for me to hate you, even though the shit you're doing is maniacal as fuck. When you have the nastiest scowl directed at a character and another person comes in and is like, why are you so angry at him? And your only reasoning is because look at that perfect face, that slick back hair, he goes around kissing puppy dogs and babies. Fuck him. Just petty, just absolute scum of the earth. We'll do anything to get back at you. All this damn power, and you'd rather go screw with your op as a child because it just brings you joy. With great power comes great responsibility to just fuck up everyone else's lives. And I'ma just sit here like, damn, I hate you. But I gotta give respect where respect is due because you really just love the game.
Now, the reason why I feel like when it comes to writing villains of why we don't need all these redemption arcs or we don't need these sympathetic stories is because a lot of the times these sympathetic stories make us feel bad for this person when we don't need to be feeling bad for them all the time. Like, sometimes, like, we don't need to be justifying the reason that they do these things because, like, we talk about Reverse Flash and Carnage. We not there yet. We ain't there yet. But when it comes to Carnage and Reverse Flash, like, they literally just do this for the love of the game. They don't want nobody to need to understand them. They are literally they're not no product of nothing, and these characters have so much depth. They have the same amount of depth that the other ones who are getting more sympathy towards. We don't really feel no sympathy towards them. And this is what I'm saying that's okay with making these villains not have these backstories, is because they are going around doing the things that that the the authors are making them out to do. And they still have a fan base. People are still interested, but they're not interested in the way of, oh my goodness, I feel so bad for them. I see myself in them, not in the sense of killing all these people. I see myself in the sense of feeling alone, feeling hurt, going through these situations of abuse and stuff like that, but you still didn't take that path. So why should we sympathize for somebody who did? And this is where we also get in the divide of like who yeah, we're not there yet. But this is the reason why I love at least when it comes to Carnage and Reverse Flash. And that's not even like I'm not saying that I like them because they're ruthless and stuff like that. I'm not saying that I like them because they're ruthless. I feel like I like them because they are who they are. There is no sympathy needed towards them. They make the decision that they do is because they are villains. This is the same goes for Joker. They don't have no death, but we still we love these characters. But I feel like depending on the Joker, because we end up giving Joker a sympathetic story too. But did he really need that? Did he really need a sympathetic story? Don't get me wrong, the first one was good. I didn't see the second one, but they didn't need a sympathetic story. Like, we only give villains sympathetic story because we want to have more nuance when it comes to these discussions. We want to be able to kind of like internalize on why I feel like I relate to this character, why I feel like I need to make a reason on why I love this character. Because sometimes you could love a character even if they're evil. You could love a character even if they're a villain, because half the time these villains, they're not just one-dimensional or two-dimensional. Half the times, just like Reverse Flash, I'm not 100% on Carnage, but just like Reverse Flash is funny. So who wouldn't like this villain who's a funny villain, and he really just doing it just to make Barry mad? That's literally the reason why he do it, is just to make him mad. And he's literally so petty that instead of him calling himself Flash, he says he's the Reverse Flash, and he continued to torment Flash. That's all he do. So yes, I just feel like when it comes to these characters of not having no background story, I feel like it takes that relatability out of it and that sympathetic nature out of it, and it just gives us what we want. It gives us the story that we need without trying to guilt ourselves into like, oh yeah, the reason why I'm which call it, because it kind of brings more questions like, oh, if I end up going through these situations, will I end up turning into them? But now with these sympathetic villains, even though they're doing the crappy things that they're doing, we're now, because we have the tools to make an excuse for them, we're not actually looking in to realize like, oh, I probably wouldn't make that decision, or I probably would make that decision. That's something that you can internalize yourself. That's not something that you need to be for them to be able to give the excuse. That's just like you going to therapy and they're like, oh, what's wrong with you and stuff like that, and you're telling them what's wrong, and they're pretty much just making stuff up to make you kind of like, of course, make you feel better, but they're not really trying to help you heal. They're not really trying to make you heal. They're just like, yeah, so I think this is why you're doing the things that you're doing. Like you really shouldn't even feel bad about it. Like, you shouldn't even feel bad that you treated your coworkers or your family or your friends like this, because this, you just a product of your environment. You just blah 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 blah, whatever. We're already in past that, but now we're not getting that internalized thinking no more. Now we're just making excuses. But for Reverse Flash and Carnage and the Joker, before they made the movie Joker, there was no internalized nothing. They were just evil beings. They were just evil people. They were just ruthless. And I feel like when we're doing these stories, when I'm doing this, it all circle backs down to what we're choosing to romanticize or even like, or give them redemption, or give them a reason, give them an excuse in fiction. We'll do it in reality. There is no separation from it. Like, we can't say like, oh yeah, I sympathize towards fiction villains, but I don't really sympathize towards real life villains. But let's think about it real quick and see, what if we are starting to give the same real life villains a similar story of a redemption arc, and from a fiction to reality? Let's see how that goes. And that's exactly how we end up getting the sympathizers, or the redemption, or a background story of, oh, he's just a product of his environment. He's just a product of his environment. And that's exactly how we end up getting the Ted Bundy, Jeff Dahmer, or any other serial killer that they're starting to come out now, is because they say that we shouldn't humanize. I mean, they say that we should humanize them because they are human. But why aren't we getting the story of Why aren't we being able to get the next door neighbor? Why aren't we able to get her story on how she saw Jeff Dahmer or his grandma or anybody else? Even for Ted Bundy, why aren't we getting the perspectives of other people? Why are we seeing it through their eyes? Why are we starting from the time that they were younger to the time that they are now? Why, even when we have people doing despicable things, shooting up churches, shooting up schools, just killing people with no remorse, no empathy, why are we always trying to find out, oh, like, how's they home living? Like, how was they being treated at home when they're mass murdering a lot of people? And we don't get that same sympathy. We don't give that same sympathy to these victims. We don't give that same sympathy to, we don't give that same sympathy to everybody, is what I'm trying to say. Not even, the only ones we're giving it to is these serial killers. Because if we think about it, if we're sitting here not saying that it's right, I'm not saying that it's right, I just want to reiterate that we're getting a story of Jeffrey Dahmer, we're getting a story of Ted Bundy, and we're getting a story of many other serial killers. But why aren't we giving the same sympathy to women serial killers? Why aren't we giving more sympathy to marginalized serial killers? Why aren't we getting their stories? Why aren't we getting it in their perspective? Because we only pick and choose the people that we want to sympathize for, especially with media. Media only want to sympathize the people that's more relatable to the people. The same thing with Cersei, like the same thing with women serial killers. I'm not saying that we should get no sympathy arc towards them. I don't want no sympathy arc towards them. It's just that we shouldn't be getting no sympathy arc towards Jeffrey Dahmer or Ted Bundy. We shouldn't be trying to look into the mind of a killer, because it takes away the whole concept of them doing the despicable things that they're doing and being seen as the villain in the story. But we're not holding them to that standard, and that is coming from fiction. And now we're replacing it with replacing it with real life people. And a lot of the times with these serial killers, they make us not even just sympathy. They want them to be misunderstood. They want them to be, oh, like this could have been you if these circumstances was different. But a lot of the times we're given those same circumstances every day. A woman who literally end up getting situations happen to her and situations that happen to little kids, like, we're not there is no balance. Like, how are we choosing who end up getting empathy and who end up getting crucified? How are we choosing who gets a redemption and who don't end up getting redemption, and we're just seeing them as the lowest class of lowest class? How are we making these choices? How are we making these connections? Because I feel like it's not connecting. And I feel like it all comes down to it really just all comes down to not every villain deserves a redemption arc. Not every villain needs a redemption story. Sometimes it's okay to just be a villain. And sometimes it's okay to be able to relate to a lot of these villains, because a lot of the times in those circumstances, it literally could have been you. But you don't need to have to make excuses for the things that you do all the time. Like, sometimes, like, you just end up coming to this world and, like, what that girl say? Sometimes you just want to be a bitch because you a bitch. Look, she said it, not me. I'm just agreeing. Like, I'm just a messenger. But I do get exactly what she's saying. Like, have you ever had a situation, like, I feel like this is something that's relatable. And like I said, it's okay that I could be that person, or it's okay that I end up accidentally, or not even accidentally, ruining the day for somebody because of my day going bad. But I don't need somebody to sit there and tell me, like, oh yeah, you're right for making everybody day else shitty because you're feeling shitty. Because there's never no excuse for you making somebody else's day shitty because you're feeling shitty. Because it'll make you no better, especially when somebody else end up coming with that same attitude, and you're sitting there telling your friend, like, dang, why she acting like this, or why he acting like this, and they need to fix their attitude and stuff like that. But you still get that same, you still give off that same energy when it's your day to come.
What is the difference between a hero of a story and a villain? Because I'll tell you what, most times they have the same origin story. Sometimes they're twins. Sometimes they're like siblings. They literally came from the same place in every way. And they show up in this part of the movie or book, and we start to notice that the path is splitting, and the hero goes inside and says, this is really hard. I need other people with me. I need to choose empathy, compassion. Everything that's happened to me up until this point is now my responsibility to respond to. Not my fault, but my responsibility to respond. What am I going to do to make this a better situation for everybody? You know what a villain says? They go back, they look at that same life, and they're like, no, I think I'm going to do the revenge path. Thanks. That's good. That's good for me. I don't really want to take responsibility. I'm going to get harder. I'm going to get more curmudgeon-y. Haven't you ever met somebody, even in Starbucks, you're just walking in, having a normal day, you can feel their energy when they walk in, like a chill, like Cruella de Vil. You're like, whoa, oh, you okay? You have a bad day or a bad life, or what's going on here? Villains choose the path of blame. They look at their life and they say, not my fault, but also not my responsibility. I'm coming for you. I want what I want, and I don't care what it costs. And they're usually thinking about themselves. I'm so glad you didn't do a villain award before I came up, because that would be awkward. Who's ruined more people's lives here by being selfish? That's not an award. No one wants that award, right? This is when that split happens. And no one's perfect. No one, I'm not saying we're all like, I will always choose the highest road. Sometimes I'm like, you know what? A medium road is okay. I'm going to do a medium road. I'll still be a hero technically. But we have these moments. And the hero's journey doesn't end there. It's where we make the crucial decisions about who we're going to be.
Pretty much to wrap up everything that I'm trying to say is that sometimes I feel like not all villains need a redemption arc. Tell you the truth, I feel like a lot of them don't need redemption arcs. I was even talking with my sister, and she brought up a valid point. I feel like a lot of the times the people who actually do need redemption arcs, or people who need that story to be able to relate more to the audience, is people who plan on end up becoming a better person after a time. Like, they end up turning around and becoming good, apologizing for the wrongs that they did, and understanding and coming to that conclusion that maybe it's me. Maybe I need to end up finding help to be able to heal myself within, instead of giving all this negative energy to other people. When they end up going into that reflection, I feel like that's when a lot of redemption arcs need to be had, because we're getting redemption arcs from people who are never going to change. And they would have still did the same circumstances, or still made the same decisions regardless of the circumstance. Because I feel like a lot of the times we end up giving more empathy towards the villain than we give more empathy towards the hero, because there is no divide. Because when it comes down to the villain and the hero, a lot of the times those heroes are going through the same thing that those villains are. And every time that they wake up, no matter getting beat down, continue to get beat down, they still continue to get back up. And a lot of the times we are unable to relate to them because the way that media portrays heroes as being unattainable. But if you look deeper than what's being said, and how the villain is continuing to author, or the writers are continuing to give us this perspective of this villain he's going through dark times, he's this and that and the third, we kind of look past our heroes going through a similar situation and still choosing the hard decisions. Because I feel like a lot of the times, like, as much as I see and want to look more into the villain reason and understand why they're doing the things that they're doing, but we don't try to understand the heroes who are making the hard decisions to continue to get back and keep continuing to fight for the people. They still decide to not choose that villain route. And I feel like a lot of the times, I just feel like a lot of the times they just don't need a redemption. They don't need a redemption, especially if they don't plan on fixing what's wrong, or there's not no healing in between. Because now I'm feeling sympathy for somebody who would never change. Now I'm giving the same excuses to not only that fictional character, but I'm also giving the same empathy and same wanting to know why to realistic people who are committing the same crimes. And I'm looking past the heroes of every day, the heroes who continue to wake up, the heroes who continue to make the hard decisions. I'm looking past all that because I'm saying that I can't relate. We need to stop. Not even we. I don't want to hold everybody accountable to what I feel like is kind of like what's wrong with media today and what's wrong with a lot of the books. But I'm kind of done seeing the sympathetic villain. And tell you the truth, I'm kind of just done with it, because I don't want to be feeling sympathy for a character who literally just did a mass murder, and I'm supposed to look back on them getting beat by their dad, but they decide to kill everybody because of that instance. There's too much of a climb to you to end up going that far and feel like that's something that you could relate to. That's what I'm trying to say, guys. That's what I'm trying to say. You know, once again, I always say that not a lot of people will agree with what I have to say, and that's totally 100% understandable. Okay, if you want to if you want to change my views, you can always end up commenting in the comments and let me know what you guys think. But once again, this is just my conclusion. I'm just sick of the sympathetic villains. I'm sick of the sympathetic villains. Tell you the truth, I would take a two-dimensional villain like Reverse Flash or Carnage, because I know exactly what I'm getting, and I know that they're not willing to change their ways. The same with the reasoning of the fake humility that all these other villains are getting, but we're still choosing to feel sympathetic towards them. There is no divide. They are no different from Carnage. They are no different from Reverse Flash, but we still continue to put them in a different category, saying they're other just because of a traumatic thing that happened in their life, because they're not the only ones who've been through dramatic things. They are not the only one. They are just the product. They are just the only ones who decided to take the easy route, then take the hard route of wanting to do better and wanting to help others out, instead of feeling like they need to make these drastic changes to the world or to the environment, period, without getting other people consent, because they're selfish. That's all it comes down to, selfishness. And if you could relate to selfishness, I feel like that's something that you need to look within and something that you could possibly heal for. But trying to relate to characters who plan on not changing at all is not the way to go. And when media continue to end up shining light on the sympathies that we're giving these villains, it will trickle down to other aspects of life when it comes to giving empathy for something somebody did. But once again, thank you guys for watching my video. If you did watch it, and if you liked it, don't forget to like, put a comment, and I love to have discussions. Okay, maybe there's something that I'm not seeing that you guys could possibly end up giving me a different view on. Maybe I end up making a part 2 on maybe changing the comments, changing my views on something, or possibly not. But pretty much what I got to say and what my conclusion is my villains don't need no humility, okay? My villains need no humility. And once again, guys, I'll see you next time.